Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, April 11th, right before 8 o'clock Eastern Time here, and this is Matt from Eastern US Weather. And in this kind of segment of videos, I'll be bringing you an update on the upcoming system that is currently impacting the southeast, which will begin to impact the northeast, or kind of is right now, but it'll really start to get its thing on into the Friday night, early Saturday morning time frame for the northeast. But right now there is some pretty severe storms in the southeast, especially in kind of northwest Georgia, just northwest of Atlanta. Possible tornado, not confirmed yet, but it appears that it's re-touched down around the Cartersville area, tracking northeast. All right, so what you got in front of you here is the European snow totals, snowfall for pretty much the whole storm. So you can see showing uh, down here 12 to 18 inches, a little tiny pocket of 12 to 18 inches up near Marquette, up in the UP of Michigan. Looks like they could get a pretty good snowstorm. I don't think they'll see quite 18 inches, but they could definitely see around or over a foot. Yeah, just some pretty heavy snows for this time of year into parts of Michigan. In the Northeast, looks like a good general 6, the European is saying. New England, upstate New York could see a little more. Um, but yeah, I really don't think that. I think the Europeans overdoing this a bit for New England. I think the Europeans going to do pretty spot on up into Michigan and kind of the Great Lakes regions. But I think that it's going to be really hard to get these totals into New England here, especially. I mean, it's calling for 3 inches pretty much in the Catskills, which I really don't see happening. The temperatures just are not going to be favoring that. I mean, elevation will be a factor, but perhaps they'll see some sleet or freezing rain. And of course, it's possible for some snowflakes to mix in. But yeah, I think it's overdoing it a little bit, and I think that parts of Maine up into these regions could kind of see a little more than the European is putting out. But anyway, let's move on to what the European has for total precip. So in my last couple of videos, the models have been kind of given a bunch of spots of like 2 inches and like 2.5, 3 to 4 inches, and nothing, no model really is showing 2 inches of rain falling on the mainland, which was a pretty big concern at the time. But they've, especially the Europeans, really weaned back on the precip totals, which is why we're not seeing as much snow up into the UP and to upstate New York. I mean, the cold will be there in the extreme northern regions, but just the precip really won't be like this is the inch line right here, right? So yeah, that's that. Looks like the heaviest rain could be falling into parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, northern Alabama. Nothing really. I mean, looks like the Outer Banks will not get all that much. Might luck out there, but yeah. All right, and if we move on to what the European has in store for the storm. All right, so this is starting pretty much right around now. This first image, and it goes in 6-hour intervals. So currently, the European at 8 p.m. shows a pretty significant squall line moving into Alabama. Pretty heavy rains in there. Center of pressure pretty much right. I gotta change my marker. You guys can't really see that. Right into these areas, right into there. Moving pretty much to the northeast. All right. So if we move forward another 6 hours, European thinks that the squalling could become a little more detached into kind of thunderstorms and stuff, kind of separate thunderstorms, but still a pretty significant squall line occurring into parts of the southeast. Alright, can't see any of these markers with this map, huh? If we move forward another 6 hours, so this would put us at, I believe, 8 a.m. on Friday, alright? You can see the precip shield. Looks like these thunderstorms could be kind of breaking apart, perhaps some heavier ones still kind of sticking around down in the south. Some pretty moderate to heavy precip up in these regions. Light precip beginning to work their way into New England, New York City area, Pennsylvania. Some heavier precip right through the Appalachia, West Virginia, Kentucky, those areas, right? Let's move forward another 6 hours to bring us to 2 p.m. on Friday. So light to moderate to heavy precip in these regions. Looks like Western Mass could be just getting to that moderate to heavy precip. Perhaps some scattered thunderstorms kind of moving their way onto the Florida peninsula like that. And heavy precip beginning to enter its way into New York. Center of pressure right in through here, just like that. Pretty broad area of pressure, not too significant. Looks like at this point it's beginning to pick up some Atlantic moisture. Alright, if you move forward another 6 hours to 8 p.m. Friday, you can really kind of see that pressure on the coast beginning to build. With still some kind of deteriorating upper level pressure back here as dry air works its way in like that. Kind of some scattered showers back into the Great Lakes area, Michigan. Moderate to pockets of heavy precip for New England. Alright. Yeah. So if we move for another 6 hours, still a pretty good squall line moving through here, going across the Florida peninsula. But yeah, so if we move forward to Saturday at 2 a.m., which we'll do right here, you can kind of see this lingering area, center of pressure here. Main storm kind of making its way south of Nova Scotia with the precip kind of scattered stuff here. It's pretty heavy squall, actually. Looks like it could be a really heavy thunderstorm right in there. But heavy squall line just offshore of southeast, particularly the Carolinas. Some lighter to moderate stuff in New England as the storm exits. So we move forward another 6 hours, pretty much all precip's gone, perhaps some lingering snows up into northern Maine, with the main area of pressure just south of Nova Scotia. Perhaps some thunderstorms kind of popping up over the Florida peninsula. All right, so let's move on to what the Euro has for wind gusts, I believe. During basically the same time period, just showed you 8 p.m. tonight, which is pretty much by the time you guys watch this, it'll be past that to Saturday early morning or mid morning. So yeah, these are in knots. So this is showing about 20 to 30, some isolated in that squall line, maybe up to 45. Looks like it'll be pretty windy up into the UP of Michigan there. Yeah, but generally pretty uh, pretty good winds making their way into the northeast. If you move forward another 6 hours with these winds, you can really see, it looks like that squalling with the winds could really ramp up. Looks like some areas in there could be seeing 50 to 55 knots, which is around 60 miles per hour, and perhaps isolated gusts of 55 to 60 knots, which is around 65 miles per hour. Some light winds into New England, looks like. So some pretty solid winds into the Great Lakes region up into there. All right. So let's move forward another 6 hours with the European wind gusts here. Wow, you can really see those winds develop right into the Appalachia, ripping right through there. Perhaps areas more than 60 to 65 knots, which I'm pretty sure I can get my knot calculator out right here. 65 knots would be almost 75-mile-per-hour gusts, so that's pretty strong winds, pretty gusty winds, I should say. Close to hurricane force winds. But yeah, and then some pretty gusty winds moving their way across the Great Lakes. Some pretty variable winds, getting a little windy at this point into New England. All right, so let's move forward another 6 hours here. And you can kind of see that squall line moving its way kind of right along here like this. And with it, the winds, looks like some winds could be isolated at, 45 to 50 knots. Still some pretty sustained winds up into the UP, upper parts of Michigan. Some pretty gusty winds beginning to move into New England. Nothing they can't handle there. Alright. Let's move another 6 hours forward. At this point, actually, it looks like the European kind of shows a little bit of a weakening in the winds as a whole. I believe that this is when the energy transfer occurs. Let's move forward another 6 hours. Nope, I was wrong. So yeah, pretty much now the bulk of the winds in the storm is offshore there. Really just some kind of lingering winds with the storm. Perhaps some scattered showers here and there. Alright. And I think I have one more image. Yeah, there you go. One's not really moving their way all too fast out of there. And yeah. Alright. So if we move forward onto the European temperatures, this is the surface temperatures in Fahrenheit. You can see the freezing mark in this kind of red up into here too. Right there. All throughout here. Alright. And this is for pretty much tonight too. So yeah, freezing mark. I mean, there's some pretty high temps into these areas. If we move forward another 6 hours, kind of see those temps dipping in upstate New York according to the Euro. Also really dipping into Wisconsin, UP of Michigan, central Michigan. Alright, New England still staying fairly warm into those south of those regions right there. We move forward another 6 hours, so this would be Friday morning. Freezing line gets pretty much the whole northern New England, upstate New York, right along the Massachusetts border into the Berkshire. So it looks like there could be some wintry precip tomorrow morning, but if anything, not a lot of it and not too long. Freezing line doesn't do much, kind of shifts its way back into only really kind of, you could say, upstate parts of Maine, away from the coast, kind of like right along there, like that. Looks like Vermont and New Hampshire will still be freezing, but yeah. Alright, if we move forward another 6 hours here, pretty much stays the same. Kind of gets a lot colder up into these regions of Maine. Gets a little bit warmer over into central Michigan. Move forward another 6 hours. Pretty much nothing changes. You can see that cold air working its way back in on the backside of the system. And at that point, most of our precip is over. Alright, so we will, in my next video, get to the GFS.